Hello and welcome to the COP28 Cryosphere Pavilion. I'm Gabrielle Kleber. I'm a researcher at the University of Tromsø in Norway, but I am here tonight to introduce Josip Kinkladze. He's from the National Environmental Agency of Georgia, and he will be presenting tonight on the societal challenges due to the accelerated glacier melt in the South Caucasus. Welcome.
So good evening, everybody. And first of all, I would like to thank to ICCI for giving this opportunity actually to discuss challenges related to the accelerated glacier melting in the South Caucasus, in Georgia in particular. So in today's presentation, okay. So in today's presentation, I will be discussing about the agency. Firstly, in the first half of the presentation, also will be dedicated to the general overview about the climate condition, water resources, and glaciers. In the mid part of the presentation, I will be discussing the recent glacier-related disasters, and this year is quite exceptional. Just a couple of months ago, we experienced the most devastating disaster in Georgia, and then I will move on to the challenges, and there are several challenges related to the observation, hazard management, etc. And in the end, I will discuss about the plans, short-term, medium-term plans, what we are planning actually, what we intend to implement and carry out in the coming years. So the couple of words about the country. So Georgia is located in the South Caucasus region. We are around 3.5 million now, and the country's area is around 69,000 square kilometer. In terms of climate, it is quite diverse. The western Georgia is relatively mild and subtropical climate, characterized with subtropical climate, while in the eastern part of the Georgia, we have semi-arid zones even, and the climate is more temperate. The country is quite mountainous. Two-thirds of the country is mountainous actually, while 20% of the land situated over 2,000 meters. So annual precipitation varies between 400 and 4,005 millimeters. In the western part of the Georgia, annual precipitation is around 900 to 2,300 millimeters. In mountainous region, we receive around 100 to 1,200 up to 2,000 millimeters, while in the eastern Georgia, we have around 500 millimeters annually. So in terms of temperatures, it also varies seasonally, and in summertime, it's around, in average, it is 18 degrees, while in wintertime, it reaches sub-zero levels. So the Environment Agency basically was established in 2008 based on the former National Meteorological and Hydrological Service. Nowadays, the agency covers quite broad range of the environmental applications, including the licenses, monitoring, etc. But I just want to discuss activities, the mandates, the functions, what we intend to cover in this presentation. Basically, we are the state agency who is responsible for the meteorological and hydrological observations. Also, there is a Department of Geology who is responsible for the groundwater monitoring, and also there is a air and water pollution department who is responsible for the water quality observations. So hazard monitoring and mapping is also one of the key activities of the NEA, and currently we have quite large-scale projects supported by Green Climate Fund and Swiss government, which aims to develop nationwide hazard maps for 7 hazards. But I would like to note also here that this project does not cover glacier-related hazards. And forecasting and early warnings, as a National Met Service, we are also responsible to prepare and to disseminate the forecasts on a daily basis, and also, if it's needed, we are also obliged to issue the warnings. So climate modeling also is our one of the key tasks, and there is a dedicated unit who is responsible for the weather and climate modeling. And also in terms of glaciology, we are responsible to conduct some field campaigns, and also we collaborate with other research institutes who are also quite actively engaged and conducting some research in this area. So the history of observations, it really it has quite long history. I just would like to focus on the glaciological expeditions, which was started in the 19th century, and also the snow depth observation was started in 1932. So currently, after the collapse of the Soviet Union and the gaining independence, we had quite drastic decrease in observing stations. But over the last few years, we are quite actively working to expand the number of stations. And also, I should note here that there is a green climate supported project also, which intends to expand the network. And we have just we procured around 150 stations, and we are about to complete the installation procedure. So around 30% of the meteorological stations will be located in the mountainous areas. So in terms of monitoring of glaciers, so mainly we are conducting the field survey campaigns, but we are just focused only on the just like measuring the area and also the length of the glaciers and retreat of the glaciers in lengths. And also we do use quite actively the freely available satellite data. So in terms of glacier inventories, there are other research institutes who are doing this. Of course, our colleagues are engaged in some projects, but it's not our mandate at this stage. And unfortunately, after the 1990s, there is no any mass balance observation, and there is no dedicated studies for these purposes, which is quite sad. So in terms of projects, this year actually we are engaged in the project which aims to assess to conduct some kind of isotope study, and we selected the one glacier where we conducted some drilling activities, and this is a collaborative efforts among different research institutes, and basically this project is supported by the International Atomic Energy. So our main role was to support and to organize the field surveys, and our colleagues were actively involved in the field campaigns. And there are some other parameters which will be analyzed by various institutes. So in terms of climate change, according to the First National communication, we did the climate data analysis, and it was found that average increase is around 0.47 degrees, mainly in June and October, which is very critical in terms of glacier melting, and this is the most let's say the melting period in the country. So in terms of future climate change, we also conducted the climate modeling. Regional climate model was downscaled. The global model was downscaled to the regional level. It was dynamic downscaling at the 10 kilometers grid, and it was explored that there is a increasing trends also expected in the next decades, and the major thing is that we expect that the temperature will be increased by 2.1 to 3.7 by the end of the century. So also while we only considered the 4.5 scenarios, RCP scenarios, because of the limited computational resources, there is another study which was conducted by the World Bank, and it says also that there will be quite high increase in temperature. So according to the highest emission pathway, it is expected that by the end of the century, temperature will be increased by 4.9, which is higher than the global average. So the water resources, Georgia is considered, and Georgia is quite rich in terms of water resources, but we should note here that there's a quite high spatiotemporal variability of runoff. Most of the, within the large river basins, the runoff, more than 50% runoff is occurring during the springtime. But by annual runoff depths, the Georgia ranks fourth in Europe after Norway, Switzerland, and Austria. And so in annual water cycle, glaciers contribute by 5% annually. So this is also very important to note that in the glacier-fed river basins, in the summertime, the glacier contribution to the runoff is higher, more than 50%, and in some cases 70%. There are quite big reduction in terms of glacier number. There is an increase, in terms of glacier numbers because of the reduction of the overall area. So nowadays it is counted that there are 541 glaciers with a total area of 543 square kilometer. The most of the glaciers are located in the western part of the country, and most of them are less than 1 square kilometers now. So there are just 9 glaciers which are over 10 square kilometers by area. So changes in glaciers. There is one study which explored and analyzed satellite data, satellite and historical maps, and according to this study, there is a significant reduction in the glacier area. So from 1911 to 2014, there is the reduction number is around 42%. The importance of the glaciers in hydropower production. So nowadays, Georgia ranks also 12th globally in terms of share of the hydropower generation. So in total, there are 70% of the hydropower electricity generated in overall generation, and approximately 40-45% of hydropower production in Georgia is generated in the glacier-fed river basins, which is around 33% of total electricity generation. There are quite large-scale projects also planned in the glacier-fed river basins, and there are also quite high debates about these projects. And mainly, I am talking about the 3 projects which we are stopped because of the high, people are against to the high to build the dams in some areas, and there are huge demonstrations, lots of political debates about the projects. But in fact, there is an annual increase in importing of the electricity, and there is a quite strong position from the government that we need to increase our independence in energy production. So basically, there will be some projects hopefully implemented in the coming years. And also there are quite many small scale projects also built up in the glacier, in the small catchments in the glacier, which is contributed, basically the mainly runoff is contributed by glacier melting. So in the summertime, the most of the generation are occurring in the summertime. So also there is a big discussions why we need to invest in such a kind of projects, which is not sustainable because of the glacier melting and reduction of the runoff. So the recent disasters, I will be talking about the 4 disasters which occurred over the last 10 years. And they are the main processes which are happening in Georgia. There are rock avalanches, ice avalanches, glacier lake outburst floods, GLOF, and debris flow. And we experienced also the cascading and compound processes in some cases. So one of the, apart from the geological condition, that's one of the main reasons of these events are related to the permafrost thawing, and because of the permafrost thawing and interannual changes of the temperature, there are quite big big threat to the slope stabilities, which lead to such a kind of like a rock avalanches and ice avalanches events. So the 2014 we experienced the quite big event in the Rocky Valley, and which is quite close to the Russian border. Around 4-5 million cubic meter of rock and ice broke off from the northeast face of the Mount Kazbegi, which immediately turned into the channelized debris flow, and the debris flow reached to the road, international road, and unfortunately we experienced fatalities. In total 8 people were killed, and also we experienced quite big economic losses in terms of damaging infrastructure. And also I should note here that the HPP infrastructure was destroyed, and there were huge debate actually why we did not consider the hazard in the run-out zone. And then we experienced a repeated event in the Doraki after 3 months. There were lots of mass accumulated in the channel, and due to the heavy rainfall, this mass was transferred in the downstream, and again, unfortunately, 2 people were died, and the infrastructure were destroyed. And also in 2016, again, the rainfall triggered debris flow event occurred, but fortunately, in this case, nobody was died. In 2015, we started the implementation of the alarming system in this valley. We have contracted the Swiss company who did the feasibility study. At the first level, they implemented the model, which gave us some indication about the timing and where to install the relevant observing sensors. And after this feasibility study, the implementation of the installation was started, and we installed the water level measuring stations in the upstream, and also meteorological stations, and so installed the camera which is directed to the glacier and monitors the glacier dynamics. And in general system worked. In 2017, we faced also some debris flow event. Of course, it was not such a high event, but the system was activated, and the people were evacuated from in the downstream area in the run-out zone. And after that event, fortunately, there is no any event fixed which where the water level reached the threshold, and the system is maintained and operated by the company and also by our colleagues in joint collaboration. In 2018, we experienced Gulf event in the northwestern part of the country. In 7 hours, we experienced quite heavy rain, convective rain, which led to the sudden release of water from the glacier lake, and quite quickly the water reached to the downstream community and destroyed the buildings and affected the agricultural lands and farmers and livelihoods also. And the flood destroyed the road, bridges, and power high voltages transmission lines. And in total, 56 houses were damaged. Fortunately, nobody was died in this case, but it brought quite significant economic. It caused quite significant amount of the economic loss for the community. In 2019, we experienced also the rockfall event in the same region, in the Svaneti region, which is the northwestern part of the country. So around 2 million cubic meter of rockslide, which in trains and glacier evolved into channelized debris flow, reached to the major river. Fortunately, nobody was died, but there were quite significant damage. And we analyzed then the precipitation data in order to understand if the event was triggered by the precipitation, but in total, there was not significant amount of the rainfall observed in the previous days. and also, these are some pictures before the event and after the event. And as I said, it affected, unfortunately, did not affect the downstream community, but it destroyed the hydropower facilities, and which was opened just like two weeks before the event. And also there was after the event we had quite active discussions about the hazard assessment, and there are some projects which are implemented without proper assessment of the hazard, and I guess this is also a very important event to consider in the future development of the hydropower plants. As I said, the HPP infrastructure was destroyed. Also, water supply system for the community was destroyed, and there were some hiking trails. This is quite active area in terms of hiking, and there are lots of visitors and tourists. Unfortunately, nobody was around for during this event, and we avoided the casualties during this. So there are remaining hazard potential around 3 million cubic meter. Deposits are accumulated now in the channel. So in case of the heavy rainfall, there is a quite high risk to mobilize and to transport this debris into downstream. So we asked to the HPP to study and to install the early warning system. So nowadays they are implementing this project, and it actually is very important to have the systems in the upstream, because they are around like 10 kilometers far from this area. They're quite actively developed communities, and also close to the channels and in the floodplains there are many developments ongoing because it's very attractive touristic area, and it's very important to have the proper assessment and early warning systems in this zone. So the most devastating disaster which was occurred in the beginning of August this year, unfortunately we lost 33 people. Approximately 1 million cubic meter of the rock avalanche, which entrained in the ice and transported into debris flow, reached to the resort, which is mountainous resort, mainly busy in the summertime, and this was the most let's say hottest period for this resort, and there were lots of people in the place, and daily visitors as well. And unfortunately, this is the highest number of casualties, unfortunately, we experienced over the last decades. So debris flow reached to the resorts according to the estimations, and then we did the modeling, and according to the results, we estimated that the debris flow reached to the resort in 8-10 minutes. So these are the pictures where it shows the release area, and also the big polygon indicates the affected area of glaciers. Mainly, it is a superficial scraping, and there was not significant amount of the glacier eroded, but especially in the beginning of the quite close to the rockfall release area, there were quite big erosion of the glaciers. And this is some pictures from the event, and in general it's around 10 kilometers from the release area to the resort, and as I said, it reached in 8-10 minutes. So this is the completely destroyed resort. More than 60 buildings were destroyed, and there were lots of houses, guest houses, and the hotels, which were completely destroyed after the event, during the event. So these are some pictures also from this affected area. So the key challenges we've been facing in monitoring and hazard management. So as I said, there is no balance assessment activities nowadays. There is also fragmented front variation assessment. We are just covering a few catchments, and there is a need to expand the number of river basins, so glacier basins. And also there is no in situ permafrost monitoring network in place, and we need to somehow start this activity in the coming years, and there is a quite limited number of the mountainous hydrometeorological stations. As I said, within the frame of the Green Climate supported Green Climate Fund supported project, we aim to expand these stations, the knowledge of the risk. So there is a quite limited knowledge of the risk, especially related to such a kind of events. Lack of research studies due to limited financial and human resources, land use planning. For instance, the community, the Showy community approved the special master plan just a couple of years ago, but unfortunately, this kind of the hazards were not assessed and considered in the zoning. There is a lack of the alarm systems in such a kind of vulnerable areas, so this also needs to be addressed in the coming years. So what are the short-term plans? So we aim to expand the network, hydrometeorological network, and as I said, we are now implementing the hazard assessment activities, but it does not consider the glacier and permafrost related hazards, and we aim to dedicate the project to this activity and cover the entire country and identify the hotspot areas and then prioritize them in terms of implementing some kind of preventive measures. So there are some number of preventive measures we aim to introduce, the alarming systems and land use planning, and also nature-based solutions are considered to be in place. So yeah, in terms of medium-term plans, we aim to strict our zoning policy, and we are currently working with support of the UNDP project. We are currently working to introduce such a kind of like a zoning policy and legal frameworks. And also there is a need to introduce the standards in terms of assessment of the different threats. As I said, we aim to continue and enhance the implementation of the preventive measures in the coming years, and also focus on the building adaptation and resilience to the glacier and permafrost related hazards. So just to conclude, so as I discussed, there is a expectations that the temperature will be increased by the end of 21st century. So accelerated glacier melting raises concerns for long-term sustainability of the hydropower infrastructure. So glacier-related disasters caused quite huge economic losses, and more importantly, claims of 43 lives in just last 10 years. So inadequate glacier monitoring and hazard management framework raises vulnerability in the mountain communities, and I guess these are the main points I would like to note in conclusion. And last but not least, depletion of the water resources and the increase of the occurrence of the glacier-related disasters demand immediate attention and action. So thank you very much. This is from my side. Yeah. I was eager if you have any questions.
Hi, thank you for your talk. I was curious about the scientific collaboration that would be needed to address the point you highlighted at the end.
Yeah.
And how your institutes manage to.
This is a very good point. Actually, there is a need for sure to strengthen the collaboration among the research institutes and the practitioners, and we collaborate. We have the collaboration with some institutes, but there is no like a overall framework about this cooperation. And we really intend to address this, because yeah, this is very crucial to have the researchers and scientists in such a kind of decision-making process. And the decisions should be based, of course, on the scientific studies. And as I said, there is a key challenge, because there are quite limited capacity in the scientific institutes in terms of financial resources and human resources. And I guess this needs to be addressed by the government to strengthen the capacity. and to strengthen the cooperation as well. Yeah.
Maybe another question.
Yeah.
So now you presented some example on particular places, and you've also shown that you have still lots of glacier around Georgia. Are you able to assess the places where this will happen? The vulnerable places or the places at risk at least?
Yeah, this is what we aim in a short term. So we need to for the next year we aim to study just like it won't be like a quite deep, let's say, assessment, but based on the satellite data, for instance, to identify the ground displacement areas and also relate this to the vulnerable communities, and then prioritize the communities which needs to be studied in more depth. So this is what we aim, and this initiative we already received the funding for this from the government, and this initiative will be started for the beginning of the next year, hopefully. So the first phase is to identify the hotspots. Then the second phase aims to develop detailed models in order to identify the risk zones in more details, and then identify and implement the preventive measures like alarming systems, engineering like preventive structures, or the land use, or just like a prohibiting the development in such kind of zones.
Do you know approximately how many people could be vulnerable to such risk in the future?
Well, there are quite big numbers of the communities actually in the mountainous regions, and especially there are also quite increasing trends in terms of tourism development, and there are lots of quite high demand on the land in the mountainous regions, and especially these events, what we described, are located in such a kind of places where the people want to develop some kind of like houses, or like guest houses, hotels, etc. And I guess it makes these regions more vulnerable, and I think there are quite big numbers. I can tell you exactly the number of communities, but there are around more than 300 small communities which are located into such kind of valleys. Yeah.